The orbital station above Vega Prime was a place where countless worlds intersected. Markets overflowed with strange foods, engineers bartered technologies older than Earth's nations, and diplomats whispered promises that could topple empires. For Ethan Cole, a young human posted there as part of Earth's exchange program, it was both exhilarating and overwhelming. Humanity had only joined the wider galactic community a few decades ago, and though Earth's ships now flew proudly, beside the fleets of older civilizations, many still regarded humans as newcomers, curious, reckless, and untested. Ethan often found himself retreating to the observation deck when the noise of alien voices and the dazzling flood of colors became too much. The deck was quiet, a place where one could simply watch the endless sea of stars beyond the glass. Tonight was no different. He leaned against the railing, hands tucked into his jacket pockets, gazing at the jeweled galaxies in the distance. Then a voice broke the silence. "Do you know me, human?" Ethan stiffened, blinking as he turned. The words had been spoken softly, almost tenderly, yet with a strange weight. The figure standing only a few steps away seemed to glow in the low station light. At first he thought she was one of the Selvaran, an elegant species known for their luminous skin and striking eyes. She was tall and slender, her skin a faint pearlescent glow, her silver hair flowing like liquid light. Her eyes, violet, impossibly bright, were fixed on him with an intensity that made his chest tighten. But there was something else. Something achingly familiar. "Your childhood neighbor has returned," she whispered, her lips curving into a small, hesitant smile. "But not as you remember." Ethan's heart slammed against his ribs. For a moment, words deserted him. His mind spun backward through time, past years of military academies, postings, and the chaos of Earth's first contact with the galaxy. He was 10 again, running barefoot through the grassy fields of his hometown. He remembered a girl with dark hair that caught the sunlight, with laughter that rang brighter than bells. She was always beside him, playing games, daring him to climb trees higher than he should, stealing bites from the lunches their mothers packed. Her name rose to his lips like a half-forgotten prayer. "Lyra?" The alien woman nodded slowly, and her glowing eyes softened. "Yes, I am Lyra." Ethan stumbled a step closer, staring in disbelief. "But how? You disappeared when we were kids. One day you were there, the next your whole family was gone. No one ever explained." Her expression was gentle but sorrowful, and in it, Ethan saw both the neighbor he once knew and the alien princess she had become. Because the truth was too dangerous then. My parents could not risk anyone learning what we were. We had to leave without goodbyes. Ethan tried to reconcile the girl from his memories with the radiant figure before him. He remembered scraped knees and secret forts. Now she stood regal and otherworldly, carrying herself with a quiet grace that spoke of long years spent away from Earth. Yet her smile, that same crooked smile that had teased him when he lost a race, was still there. "I don't understand," he murmured. "All this time you were not human?" Lyra shook her head. "Not fully. I was born of the Selvaran, though my parents hid what we were. Earth was meant to be a sanctuary, a place far from the war that hunted us. But when the war found us again, we had no choice but to leave." She paused, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "And every year since, I wondered if you would remember me." Ethan swallowed hard. He wanted to laugh, to deny it, to say this was impossible. Yet standing there, looking into her glowing violet eyes, he felt the truth in his bones. This was Lyra, the girl who had been his first friend, his partner in mischief, his neighbor who had vanished without a trace. And now she was back. But not as he remembered. The observation deck was silent save for the hum of the station's engines. Beyond the glass, stars flared and burned in their eternal dance. For Ethan, the galaxy had always seemed vast, impersonal, and cold. But in that moment with Lyra standing before him, glowing with alien beauty yet carrying the echoes of their shared past, the galaxy felt startlingly small. "Lyra," he said softly, his voice trembling between disbelief and wonder. "It really is you." Her smile widened, tinged with relief. "Yes, Ethan. I've come back, but the world I bring with me is not the one you knew." And as the stars shone silently around them, Ethan realized that his life, and perhaps humanity's place in the galaxy, had just changed forever. The small lounge off the observation deck was quiet, tucked away from the bustling markets and corridors of the station. Ethan had led Lyra there instinctively, searching for someplace private, someplace safe, where he could finally try to make sense of what he had just witnessed. They sat across from one another at a low table. A server drone floated silently to deliver steaming cups of synthesized tea, then hummed away, leaving the two of them in silence. Ethan gripped his cup tightly, as though it might anchor him to reality, while Lyra sat straight-backed, her glowing skin casting soft reflections on the metal walls. For long moments, neither spoke. Ethan studied her face, his mind caught between disbelief and recognition. She was alien, undeniably, impossibly alien, yet he could still see the girl who had once leaned out of her window at night to whisper stories across the narrow alley that separated their homes. Finally, Lyra broke the silence. "I owe you the truth, Ethan. You deserve that much." He nodded slowly, not trusting his voice. She drew in a breath, her violet eyes lowering to her cup. "My family was never truly from Earth. We are Selvarin, from a world far beyond your system. My parents were exiles, fugitives hiding from a civil war that consumed our people. On Earth, we hoped to disappear, to blend in among your kind until the war ended." Ethan blinked. "Blend in? But you looked human." A faint smile touched her lips. "Our species is close enough in form to pass, especially with careful disguises. My parents used subtle technologies to hide the glow of our skin, to dull the brightness of our eyes. To the humans of your town, we were simply another family that moved in. To me, it was the first time I felt free." Ethan's memories stirred, her odd reluctance to join the summer swims, the way her family avoided community gatherings, her parents' quiet, watchful eyes. At the time, he thought they were shy, maybe strict. Now, it all made sense. "But then you disappeared," Ethan said, his voice harder now, colored with years of confusion. "One day you were there, the next you were gone. No note, no goodbye." Her expression fell, regret etched into her features. "The war found us again. The Selvarin rebels discovered our hiding place. My parents had no choice but to flee. They feared that if you, or anyone, knew the truth, you might be targeted too. So we left in the night." Ethan stared at her, emotions roiling inside him. The boy he had been had spent weeks searching the empty house, hoping she might come back. He had asked his parents, his neighbors, the school teachers, but no one had answers. Eventually, life had moved on, but the absence had remained like a scar. "You should have told me," he said quietly, not accusing, but aching. Tears shimmered faintly in her violet eyes. "I begged them, Ethan. I begged to say goodbye. But my parents said it was too dangerous. I was only a child. I had no power to defy them, and all these years I feared that if I saw you again, you would look at me and see only a stranger." Ethan let out a long breath, some of the bitterness easing. He looked at her, not at the glowing skin, not at the alien features, but at the way she held her cup nervously, the way her voice trembled when she said his name. This was still Lyra. Different, yes, changed by time and war, but still the girl who had been his friend. "So why now?" he asked. "Why come back after all these years?" Her shoulders stiffened. The answer weighed heavily on her. "Because the war has followed me here, Ethan. The Selvarin rebellion never ended. They hunt the bloodlines of the ruling houses, and She hesitated, then lifted her gaze to meet his. "I am not just the daughter of exiles. I am the last living heir of the Selvarin throne." The words hung in the air, heavy and surreal. Ethan's mouth went dry. "A princess," he whispered. She nodded. "A fugitive princess, hunted across the stars. And Earth is no longer hidden, no longer safe. Humanity has stepped onto the galactic stage, and that means my enemies will not hesitate to strike at your people to get to me." Ethan sat back, stunned. Humanity was still finding its footing in the galaxy, still proving it was more than a curious death world species. To think that his childhood neighbor was now at the center of an interstellar war seemed almost absurd. Yet looking into her glowing eyes, he knew it was true. "Ethan," she said softly, reaching across the table. Her fingers, warm and trembling, brushed against his hand. "I came back because I couldn't hide forever, and because I never forgot you. But if you stand near me, you will be in danger." He closed his hand over hers, firm. "You vanished. Once, Lyra. I won't let you vanish again. Danger or not." For the first time since revealing the truth, she smiled. Not the smile of a princess, but the smile of a neighbor who once raced him through the fields of Earth. The days that followed blurred into a strange mix of old familiarity and alien newness. Ethan found himself spending nearly every spare moment with Lyra. At first, it was simply to understand the vastness of her story. The exile, the throne. She had never claimed the relentless pursuit of her enemies. But gradually, he realized something deeper was happening. The girl he had once known, the neighbor who had vanished, was still there beneath the luminous skin and regal bearing. She laughed the same way, quick and sudden, like sunlight breaking through clouds. She still had the habit of tapping her fingers against a table when thinking, just as she had when solving puzzles as a child. And yet, alongside these familiar quirks, there was someone new, someone shaped by galaxies, by war, by responsibilities Ethan could barely comprehend. It unsettled him, in ways both frightening and intoxicating. One evening, she asked him to walk with her. They left the crowded promenade and ascended to the station's arboretum, a vast dome filled with alien flora. Bioluminescent trees stretched toward the artificial sky, their leaves glowing faintly blue and green, while flowers pulsed with gentle light as though breathing. The air smelled faintly of spice and earth, a reminder that life, even alien life, always found ways to flourish. They walked in silence for a time, their footsteps muffled by soft moss underfoot. Ethan glanced at her, watching the way her silver hair caught the glow of the trees, the way her violet eyes seemed to absorb starlight. She looked more like a figure out of myth than the girl next door. And yet, she turned to him with that same mischievous tilt of the head he remembered from childhood. "Do you still climb trees?" she asked suddenly. He blinked, startled. "Climb trees?" "Yes," she said, a teasing smile tugging at her lips. "You used to boast you could reach higher branches than I ever could. Do you still?" Ethan chuckled, shaking his head. "It's been a while. Hard to find trees when most of your time is spent in orbit." Her smile softened. "Then some things have changed." She stopped walking, her gaze drifting upward to the glowing canopy. "And some things have not." Ethan waited, sensing the weight in her voice. "My people bond for life," she said quietly. "It is more than marriage. It is more than love. It is the joining of two souls, a promise written into our very being. We do not bond lightly. Once chosen, it cannot be undone. He stared at her, the meaning sinking in. And you? You never bonded? Her eyes met his, luminous and vulnerable. No, I never could. Because I always remembered you, Ethan. Through every world, every hiding place, every flight from the rebels, I remembered the boy who treated me as if I was simply a girl, not a princess in disguise. The silence between them deepened, heavy, with unsaid truths. Ethan's heart pounded. He wanted to protest, to tell her she was mistaken. He was just a man from Earth, a soldier, an ordinary human. She was luminous, otherworldly, burdened with a destiny that could shake galaxies. I'm just human, he murmured, shaking his head. Lyra, I can't compare to... Her hand rose, brushing lightly against his cheek. The touch was warm, grounding, and filled with a trembling honesty. Do not call yourself small, Ethan. You were everything to me when I had nothing, and even now, you are still everything. He felt his breath catch. Her words pierced through all his doubts, all his self-deprecating excuses. She wasn't. Looking at him as a subject might look at a monarch, or as an alien might look at a curiosity. She was looking at him the way she always had, like a friend, an equal, someone who mattered. For the first time, Ethan let himself believe it. They stood there in the arboretum, surrounded by glowing trees and alien flowers, caught in a moment that seemed to fold time itself. For Ethan, the memories of childhood laughter and games melded with the present reality of an alien princess standing before him. For Lyra, the burden of exile and royalty eased, replaced by the simple truth of being with the one person who had known her before destiny claimed her. At last, she spoke again, her voice barely more than a whisper. The rebels may chase me across the stars, but they cannot take this from me. The bond I carry is not to a crown or a throne. It is to you. Ethan closed his eyes briefly, overwhelmed. When he opened them, he found her gaze waiting, steady and unflinching. He didn't answer with grand declarations. Instead, he simply took her hand in his, fingers intertwining, grounding them both. In that quiet gesture, something rekindled. A bond not forged by alien custom, not dictated by royal duty, but by years of shared memories and a connection that had never truly broken. And as they stood hand in hand beneath the alien canopy, Ethan realized that the galaxy might see her as a princess, a fugitive, a symbol of rebellion. But to him, she would always be Lyra, the neighbor who had returned. It began with a low rumble that made the floor vibrate beneath Ethan's boots. Then the lights flickered, sirens wailed, and a panicked voice over the intercom shouted in 3 languages. Incoming vessels! Hostile signatures detected! All! Civilians to shelters immediately! Ethan and Lyra rushed to the command deck, following the flood of officers and soldiers. Through the wide viewport, he saw them, jagged Selvarin warships descending from hyperspace like predators falling upon prey. Their hulls gleamed dark, bristling with weapons that glowed a sickly green. They spread out in perfect formation, surrounding the station, their engines humming with menace. Lyra's face went pale. "The rebels," she whispered. "They've found me." On the deck, human officers scrambled to respond. Orders barked through comm channels. Fighters launched from hangars like angry hornets, darting into the void. The station's defense platforms pivoted, powering up with a hum that shook the glass. Ethan stood beside Lyra, the weight of reality sinking in. This wasn't just her fight. Humanity was now in the crosshairs. Humanity doesn't have experience fighting Selvarine fleets, Lyra said, her voice trembling. Their technology is older, refined through centuries of war. You cannot... But before she could finish, The first exchange of fire lit the void. Green plasma lanced across space, striking the station's shields. The impact rocked the deck, throwing Ethan against the railing. Sparks showered from a nearby console as technicians scrambled to reroute power. Human ships retaliated, streaks of blue and white fire cutting across the dark. One of Earth's cruisers, the Valor, plunged directly into enemy lines, cannons thundering, its hull scorched but unyielding. Lyra stared, wide-eyed. "They're charging head-on? That's suicide!" Ethan shook his head grimly. "No, that's humanity." He knew the truth. Humans fought differently. The galaxy viewed war as a science, a careful equation of resources, strategies, and losses. Humanity viewed it as survival. They gambled, they adapted, they bled if they had to, but they never stopped. The battle grew fiercer. Selvarin destroyers unleashed barrages meant to overwhelm, but human pilots slipped between the shots with reckless precision. One frigate, the Hawthorne, deliberately spun through a plasma barrage, taking damage to its outer hull, only to emerge on the other side, with cannons blazing. The crew sacrificed armor for position and tore into the enemy's flank with ferocity. Lyra clutched Ethan's arm as she watched. They fight like cornered beasts." "Not cornered," Ethan said, eyes fixed on the viewport. "Just determined." The station shuddered again as another wave of fire hit the shields. Lyra's enemies weren't holding back. They wanted her captured or dead before humanity could react. But humanity was reacting. Every loss was answered with 2 victories. Every hit they took became fuel for their fury. On the far side of the battle, a Selvarin cruiser broke formation, attempting to circle behind. Before it could strike, 3 human corvettes surged forward, engines screaming, forming a spear point. They didn't hesitate. They rammed the enemy ship, locking it in place while their allies finished it with concentrated fire. Lyra gasped, her voice breaking. "They sacrificed themselves." "No," Ethan corrected. His voice was low, firm. "They chose. Humanity doesn't wait for legends. We make them." The battle raged for what felt like hours. The Selvarin rebels fought with cold precision. Their maneuvers calculated, their firepower immense. But humanity answered with chaos, improvised strategies, daring risks, and a refusal to retreat even when the odds screamed defeat. The rebels expected fear. Instead, they met fury. At last, the enemy line began to falter. Their ships, scarred and broken, pulled back. One by one, their engines flared as they retreated into hyperspace, leaving behind wreckage and silence. The station shook with cheers. Officers hugged each other, technicians slumped in relief, pilots reported in with voices hoarse from adrenaline. Humanity had held. Humanity had won. But Lyra did not cheer. She stood at the viewport, her violet eyes wide with awe and fear. "They'll come again," she whispered. "Stronger, with more ships. They won't accept this defeat." Ethan moved beside her, placing a steady hand on hers. "Then they'll find out the hard way. Humans don't stop either." She turned to him, her lips trembling as though caught between tears and a smile. "I never understood before. Why the galaxy whispers about Earth. Why they call you Deathworlders. Now I see it." Ethan gave a small, crooked grin. "And they're only seeing the beginning." The stars outside flickered against the wreckage of warships, silent witnesses to humanity's defiance. The Selvarin rebels had expected to crush a young species. Instead, they had learned what Lyra had always known. Humans were impossible to break. And for the first time since her exile began, Lyra felt a strange, unexpected certainty. Maybe, just maybe, she had come back to the right place. The moment the great gates of the station opened to allow the Alien Council's delegation through, Marcus felt as if the whole galaxy had stopped to watch. Banners of dozens of species fluttered in artificial wind. Ceremonial music filled the air, and rows of soldiers lined the walkways in strict formation. It was a stage set for history, but Marcus knew this wasn't just about treaties or diplomacy. It was about a bond that reached across species, and the one person who had turned his life upside down the moment she returned, Elira, walked beside him, dressed in ceremonial garb of her people. The silver and azure cloth shimmered, and a crown-like circlet rested upon her brow. Yet despite the regal display, she stole glances at Marcus, her violet eyes soft with something far more personal than duty. To the crowd, she was a high-born envoy of an alien empire. To Marcus, she was still the girl who once shared her lunch with him under a broken oak tree in their old neighborhood, before fate pulled her across the stars. The council's elders expected to see a frightened human clinging to survival. Instead, they saw a calm, unyielding man walking in step with one of their most celebrated leaders. And when Elira finally stopped before the assembly, she spoke not as a representative of her empire, but as a neighbor. No, as a friend. "This human," she began, her voice carrying across the chamber, "is not a stranger to me. He is not an enemy nor an outsider. He was my childhood companion on Earth, and in him I find the same courage and honesty that once made me choose him as a brother of heart. I ask you, Council, do not see humanity as weak or expendable. See them as I do, resilient, loyal, and bound by ties that cannot be erased by time or distance." The chamber erupted in murmurs. Many of the elders had long considered Earth a backwater, its people too fragile for galactic affairs. Yet seeing Elira, their own shining star, speak of a human with such reverence shook their convictions. Marcus stepped forward. He hadn't planned to speak, but Elira's words demanded an answer. He lifted his chin and let the truth spill out, plain and unembellished. "When she left," he said, "I thought I'd lost a friend forever, but life has a strange way of proving us wrong. Elira taught me something before I even knew what it meant, that differences don't have to divide us, that even across species, the bonds we make as children can last longer than empires. You want to know what humanity brings to the galaxy? It's not power, or weapons, or even knowledge. It's this: our ability to remember, to hold on to one another no matter how far we're thrown apart." The silence that followed was heavy, but not hostile. Slowly, one by one, delegates nodded. A few even placed their hands upon their chests, the alien gesture for respect. Something had shifted, something irreversible. After the assembly, as the crowds dispersed, Elira and Marcus found themselves alone in the overlooking garden of the station. The artificial sky glowed with scattered starlight, and a faint breeze stirred the blossoms of alien trees. "You've changed everything," Elira whispered, leaning against the railing. Marcus chuckled softly. "Pretty sure you were the one who did that." "No," she said firmly. "It was us, together." For a long moment they stood in silence, the weight of destiny pressing down, yet somehow made lighter by the simple presence of one another. She turned toward him, her eyes shimmering not with authority, but with raw vulnerability. "Do you know me now, Marcus?" she asked, echoing the very words that had first shaken his world when she revealed herself. He smiled, genuine, warm, unguarded. "Yeah," he said, "I know you, better than ever." Her laughter rang out like the sound of wind chimes in the starlit air. Not the regal voice of a diplomat, not the commanding tone of a leader, but the same laughter he remembered from their childhood. The same laughter that had once echoed across cracked sidewalks and old playgrounds. In that instant, Marcus realized that Elira had never truly been gone. The galaxy had changed her form, her voice, her role, but the essence of who she was remained. and through her, humanity had been given a place among the stars not because of force or conquest, but because of something far more enduring: connection. As they walked back together side by side, Marcus knew one truth with unshakable certainty. This wasn't the end of their story. It was only the beginning.